happens when you have a talented artist, a cinephile, and a high-energy podcast host? Well, you're about to find out. You're listening to Open Here, a podcast produced by PACTV. I'm Tiff Phillips. Let's get started. Hi, friends. Hope all is well and wonderful. We have a great episode for you here today. You know, art is kind of a big deal here in Plymouth. There are so many places to view and experience all different types of artistic expression. And the local artists here are some of the most passionate, most talented humans you'll ever meet. And I had the fantastic opportunity to interview one of them. Have a listen to our interview with artist Jessie Fries of The Art Shop. Hi, Jessie. Welcome to Open Here. So happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, Jessie, you are an artist here in Plymouth. Yeah. You are at The Art Shop with Eddie Murray, your bestie, right?
Yes.
You guys are good friends.
Bestie, business partner. He is my best friend, yeah.
Aw. So, can you just tell us a little bit about you, your background, your family life?
Yeah. Family life. I grew up in a household where we appreciated handmade things. My dad is a very talented woodworker. My mom weaves baskets. My nan, who's passed, B, she braided rugs. So I grew up in this environment where anything handmade was just treasured and valued.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So it's in your blood, right? So when did
Sure.
you know that you were an artist?
Oh, before I could walk. My Nana and Grampy, every weekend I'd be over there visiting, and there was a craft cabinet, and they'd have different art and craft projects. Like before I could, I'd be in a high chair. I remember being in a high chair with crayons, and we'd have a different project every weekend. And I just loved spending time making and creating. It just was forever. It was going to be what I wanted to be. Third grade, teacher asked, "What do you want to do?" "I want to be an artist."
So later on the line, you were on our show, Local Matters, and you had talked about how someone told you along the line that you were never going to make it in the art world, but you did.
Oh,
I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did you overcome that kind of self-doubt?
Absolutely. Being an artist, as difficult as it is, you're putting yourself out there. Your artwork. So when you go away to school, which I do encourage getting a second education. I do. However, when I went away to college, I went to New York. I grew up in Carver, so I was a little country hick mouse. And I was going to go to New York and just wow them. And my first semester in art classes, I failed every art class. And my professor at the end of that semester had all my portfolio work for the whole term in front of everybody. We were in an amphitheater in front of everybody that was taking art, and said that I had absolutely no talent and to go home. And I took it hard, but not so hard that it didn't spur me. I called my dad on the phone. I'm like, all right, don't, we're done with school. I'm coming home. And my parents were really wonderful, very supportive, always have been. And I came home, and this is before, I had a computer. This was way back. I went to the library every week and every Tuesday, and I would grab a different art book, a different something. And I was determined I'm going to teach myself how to be an artist. I'm going to teach myself. And a lot of trial and error. 30 years later, I'm doing my thing full time. And I remember being poor too. My dad being a woodworker, there'd be scraps of wood, and I had the lamest paintbrushes and a few tubes of paint. I had a daughter very young as well. And I would read these art books and teach myself and practice. And a lot of things got thrown into the wood pile, the burn pile. But a lot of it was just loving what I was doing and not giving up.
So was there ever a moment where you're like, maybe I can't do this?
Oh, no. I'm a Taurus the bull. You tell me no, I'm going to fight harder and want it more. But it could be crushing if you have a mentor or somebody that's not encouraging you. A lot of times we need to listen to what that direction's being told and learn from it. However, not in my case. I was just like, but trust me, it's not been an easy road not having a college degree and having to prove yourself as an artist over and over again to say.
But there's something to be said about being self-taught. Like, that's magical. There's some things that school can't teach you, that kind of innate, born with it kind of talent. Yeah. And that's incredible that you were able to do that.
Thank you.
Now, how did the art shop come about?
Funny you should ask. Okay, so I have an incredibly supportive family doing the art thing, and I also live with a wonderful person. He's very supportive. He's a policeman. He does his thing. He's in his own world, but I'm in my little rainbow world of color and creating. And I made friends with this Eddie Murray, my friend and business partner now. And we've been friends 10 years today because Facebook told me. And we just clicked, and we realized that we had been in a lot of art festivals, the waterfront festivals tomorrow. We had done all these fairs and art shows, but never really knew each other. But we had participated at these same places, and we became friends through a mutual art friend on Facebook. And then we just said, hey, let's do this show together. And we just worked well together. And then I think 9 years ago, I had an opportunity to rent a little tiny studio space, and we started in Plymouth, the art shop, and we didn't have running water. We were only there on the weekends. He worked full-time driving back and forth to Rhode Island, and I would teach classes and do my stuff, my art classes in the week, but on the weekend we were open to the public. But then it started to take off, and people were like, oh, we could do this. Like, we could do this full-time. Let's set our sights higher to build the art shop bigger. Let's head for Plymouth someday. It took a few years, but our goal was to be down here before 2020, the big 400th anniversary.
How long did it actually take for it to take off? Because usually, that first year is the most difficult. So, you
definitely
feel like you're in the flow now, right?
Oh,
so, yeah. When did you feel like you were in that kind of we're actually doing this?
A few months in.
Yeah.
A few months in, we had a big open house, and we had a line outside the door waiting to get in, and we were thrilled. It was exciting, and people were connecting with what we were creating, and they were purchasing, which was great because that helps pay the bills. And we just had such a positive feedback. And starting in Plimpton was great because I had lived there for 20 years raising my daughter, and it's a great community. People are just very supportive. It's kind of country, but we knew we were outgrowing our space. We had to go a little bigger, and Plymouth this is our destination. This is our final destination for us. We love it. We love being in Plymouth.
Awesome. Can you tell me what a typical day looks like in your life?
Sure. I wake up and the first thing I say to myself, and I have a sign in front of me in case I forget, I will wake up with purpose and intent. That is my first thought. And I say it out loud. That's my mantra in the day. So, and then I have to think, okay, something's going to inspire me today. Then I walk my little pug, Lulu, and a lot of people know Lulu. She's at the shop a lot. She's our mascot. And then I'm like, whatever inspires me that day is the direction I go for. I don't take commission work. I do what I want to create. It could be a multiple of mediums because being self-taught, I have tried so many mediums. I have my favorites, and then I have my things that I'm like, I don't ever want to be called a sellout because I'll paint something that I know will connect with an audience, like oceans and pretty landscapes, but I love doing that. But I also I have a dark side too, so I like to do my creepy drawings and paintings or dark, moody charcoals, and it's just whatever the mood I'm in and whatever inspires me.
So what is your favorite medium?
Charcoal. I love drawing. I guess it's emotional, it's dirty, and I get covered in it, and I get into it, and I love it.
Always reminds me of Titanic. He's drawing. That's awesome. So where do you get your inspiration from?
Nature first. Always nature. That's the biggest inspiration. Sometimes people. You're giving off such a positive vibe. I'm going to go create something beautiful today. You might encounter something that just puts you in a mood, and it's like, okay, you know what? Or maybe it's just I just want to play with watercolors today, or it could be anything that I see along that morning or getting me going. That I'm like, that's what I got to do.
Do you feel like you get to just play every day? Is that like you're just living your best life?
I am living my best life. I'm very blessed, and I count my blessings. And I let people know that. We say, I work with a business partner that I trust, and he's my friend. I work with my dog, which I love. I'm by the ocean making art every day. I get to go home to a safe, beautiful home with a great person there, and I have a good life, and I count my blessings. There are days that days suck, but then there's mostly 99% of the time it's good. It's all good.
So, I mean, you're such a positive person. Is that how you stay? You count your blessings? Because it's an easy time to be kind of jaded by everything that's going on. So how do you keep that up?
The last few years prove that to a lot of people. I always look at it like, the good and the bad with COVID for me was I had artwork to channel when we were in lockdown in our house. I had something creative and positive that I could work. And there were times that I painted dark pieces because we were so unsure of what was happening in the world. But I had an outlet, and a creative outlet I think is so important for kids to adults to anybody. Anybody that can find something that they can be creative and have a moment. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece or beautiful or perfect, but you get lost on that process. And I love the process. And that's what keeps you positive. Just keep doing it and keep at it, and then you might have something that's gorgeous at the end too. You might make something lovely, and it just keeps me in a good frame of mind. Yeah.
So what's your advice for folks there who are just kind of getting into their talent, who are artists, who are just trying to start out?
Work at it. I had a great uncle who was an artist, and I was very, very young when he passed away. He was in his 90s, and Uncle Howard. And I asked him, I wanted to be an artist, and what is the advice he would give me? And I would give this also to people. He said, any chance you have an opportunity, take it. If you have a chance to learn something creatively, do it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. Work at it, practice. Work at it, practice. Enjoy it. Have fun while you're doing it. It's not always fun, but I mean, you try to have a fun time. And I do. I work my days off. I'll work 10, 12 hours in my studio on my 2 days off, and I love it. If I'm in a restaurant and there's a napkin, I'll get my pen out, and when you just do it, it's just nature. Cooking is, if I'm not creating, maybe I'll make some presentation, something nice in food, or never have idle hands.
I love that.
And don't be afraid of failure. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, you're totally fine.
Don't be afraid of failure. Failure will help you grow to be successful.
It's more of an experience than an actual failing of, I totally get that. Mm-hmm. So what do you think the future holds for you?
The future's bright.
It is for you.
I'm going to continue living a good life and making art and pushing myself and challenging myself creatively. Like, there might be something I want to tackle or learn that I'm unsure of, but I'm going to keep practicing and doing more. I hope the art shop continues to grow downtown Plymouth. We love being down there, part of it, the scene. I don't know. I have a lot right now that I just want more of it. I'm being selfish. I want more of what I have.
It's not selfish. That's just living your dream, and that's amazing. Jessie, thank you so much for being here today. You are such a ray of sunshine, and I think you're inspiration to a lot of folks out there who need to follow their dreams. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yay. Always a pleasure having Jessie. All right, now we're going to switch gears and bring you a little slice of entertainment. Here's Dave Antoine to tell you all about the epic movies of 1999 and 2019.
Many fall seasons ago, myself and a friend tried to get into a free screening of The Lighthouse, but we didn't make it in time. Licking our wounds in a nearby bar when I got wind of an early screening of Parasite, playing in 30 minutes at a theater 2 train stops away. We paid our bill, hustled the train, and then booked it on foot to the theater half a mile away, only to find out that the movie had sold out a half hour ago. Clearly, those screenings weren't in the cards for us at the time. There were only 2 of many films released in 2019, and in my estimation, it served as one of the best years of cinema that I haven't seen since turn of the 20th century cinema in 1999. Coincidentally, both 1999 and 2019 have something in common, existentially speaking, of course. 1999 was staring down the end of a century as Bill Clinton was closing out his presidency, while the possible anxiety of Y2K was either a mere myth or yet to be tested global disaster. 2019, however, as it was closing out the year and the decade with musical felines and the turn of John Rambo, was just months away from a world-changing pandemic, and a year facing a severe turn of events culturally, politically, and socially. During my college freshman year, I had ventured into the city as a fresh-faced kid to see a film that I'd heard so much about with an absurd premise. That was Being John Malkovich, the story of a puppeteer whom, through happenstance, discovers a small door that leads to a tunnel that becomes a direct path into the mind of actor John Malkovich. Welcome to 1999, a year where the 20th century was months away from concluding forever, giving us films coming out of both the major studios and the indie distributors, giving us Fight Club, Dogma, The Blair Witch Project, Election, and The Sixth Sense, among others. Add a pair of Tom Cruise films with Magnolia and Eyes Wide Shut, the latter of which would be Stanley Kubrick's 13th and final film. This wasn't a normal year for American cinema, but it was a good one. A proper send-off to a literal century of cinema that began with moments like actor Justin Barnes as a cowboy, firing off a pistol on camera. It would be a tough act to follow. Enter 2 decades later, Trump was the 45th president, Brexit had dominated the news cycles, the United States would win the FIFA Women's World Cup, Greta Thunberg would be Time Magazine's youngest person of the year, protests took place in Hong Kong, and fire had erupted at Notre Dame in Paris. As for myself personally, I would naturally be at the theater, taking in repertory screenings and holdover films from last year. Surely but slowly, this year's films would begin to appear in the multiplex. Hollywood entertainment withstanding, we'd see Disney release blockbuster movies like Captain Marvel and Dumbo in the first quarter, alongside smaller films. But for me, a film that would begin to set the tone for the rest of the year would be Jordan Peele's Us. Peele, of course, is the director of socially conscious horror, focusing on a family vacation gone very wrong. Peele's film would be an impressive second effort, itself part of a collective of filmmakers who would impress in their own sophomore efforts that year, like Ari Aster's Midsommar, Rupert Gould's Judy, and Greta Gerwig's Little Woman. It's an impressive feat, considering some of the work was from A24, the studio that would also release other notables that year like The Farewell, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and finally Uncut Gems, featuring Adam Sandler in a career-best performance. But that's not to say that these releases were the only game in town. There were impressive feature directing debuts like Olivia Wilde's Booksmart and The Peanut Butter Falcon. From a commercial point of view, we saw the studios, already in a turbulent period of change, and a media landscape shifting between theatrical and streaming, release some impressive commercial work. Sequels like John Wick 3 and Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, while Marvel would conclude the Infinity Saga with Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home. While their parent company Disney would close on the purchase of 21st Century Fox, and thus their studio divisions of 20th Century Fox and Fox Searchlight would take on a new identity. In some respects, films released by these studios included Ad Astra, Alita Battle Angel, Ford vs. Ferrari, and Ready or Not, would be part of a now bygone era of film history, stretching back 85 years when 20th Century Pictures merged with Fox Film. But in that year, we also saw the likes of adult-driven studio films, such as A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Bombshell, Hustlers, Knives Out, and Rocketman. We'd also see newly reimagined takes on genre material. On the horror front, Stephen King's The Shining would have a near 40-year follow-up with Dr. Sleep, while It Chapter 2 would conclude the Pennywise saga. Todd Phillips, the director whose career was rooted in raunchy comedy, would deliver Joker, imagining Batman's arch-nemesis in a world influenced by Martin Scorsese's gritty crime films. Scorsese himself would deliver the long-awaited The Irishman, itself released by the same company behind Marriage Story that year. We treated not one but 5 other notable films from legendary filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, Clint Eastwood's Richard Jewell, Sam Mendes' 1917, and The Amusement Park, the lost film from George Romero, produced in 1973, but premiered in October 2019. A friend once recapped that 2019 is a sign of it being the good old days, long before we were sitting on our couches then in a theater, when cinema didn't rely primarily on franchises to bring audiences out, but a broader spectrum in which all films could equally exist in the cinematic landscape. I find myself asking, what was it about 1 year in cinema that reminded me so much of 1999? Was it the buffet of sequels that in some respects defied expectations? Was it the depiction of the human condition taking place in Seoul, South Korea, or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania? Would it be the epic storylines set in the backdrops of 20th century history? I think for myself it was all those things that reminded me of 1999 when I first watched Being John Malkovich. Years of both risk-taking and commercially dynamic work, as if the century then and decade now was reaching an artistic peak before we'd enter the decade with no idea of what was in store. It's true that the pandemic may have widened the abyss in determining what was worthy of watching what, where, and how. The public would be more inclined to see spectacle on the big screen while watching the latest romantic comedy on their smartphones, without dealing with the pitfalls of movie theater attendance, like the price of admission or limited snacks. But as we're now years removed from 2019 and life is returning somewhat to normalcy, I'm developing a sense of optimism when I'm at the movies these days. For me at least, like 1999, 2019 was a year of pleasant surprises. And as we head into the future, I can only think that releases will only be getting better for not just cinephiles like myself, but for the movie-going public too. Is that to say that 2023 will be like 2019? No. But I think it will catch up to what we needed more of, in cinema at least for the last couple years. A sense of energy, a sense of great entertainment, and a sense of thought-provoking storytelling. All things that 2019 certainly brought us. I can only hope that I'll be able to get into a screening this time.
Thanks, Dave. I always learn so much from you. I also want to thank Jessie for being our guest here today. Such a pleasure. And I want to thank you for giving us a listen. You've been listening to Open Here, a podcast produced by Plymouth Area Community Television. PACTV is the community media provider for the Massachusetts towns of Plymouth, Pembroke, Kingston, and Duxbury. To see more of our content, visit pactv.org/thelocalscene. I'm Tiff Phillips. Thanks for tuning in. Let's hang out again soon. Hi friends, if you like this video by The Local Scene, share the love and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe.